From your earlier email, I may not have received. I only received today.
I welcome all INSA fellows to today's AGM, and we have actually with us, we are fortunate to have Professor Mashelkar with us, and it's an honor for us, sir. And he is here to give his oration for the INSA Medal for Promotion and Service to Science. The INSA Medal for Promotion and Service to Science was established by the Academy in 2001 for the purpose of recognizing those who have rendered exceptional service for promoting science in India. The medal is awarded once in 3 years and is open to any Indian individual, Indian national, and earlier recipients are M.G.K. Menon, Professor M.G.K. Menon, Professor S. Varatharajan, Professor C.N.R. Rao, Professor M.M. Sharma, Professor P.N. Tandon, Professor M.V.S. Valiathan, and Professor Govardhan Mehta. I have been asked to introduce a person who actually needs no introduction, but I will read a formal introduction, which is actually full of so many laurels that one really admires. So Professor Mashelkar was the Director General of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research for 11 years and is widely recognized for transforming the organization. A former president of Indian National Science Academy, Professor Mashelkar is a prominent champion of the innovation movement in India. He is currently the chairman of India's National Innovation Foundation, a member of the National Innovation Council, and a member of the Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. Professor Mashelkar is elected fellow of all 3 Indian academies and Indian National Academy of Engineering, the World Academy of Sciences, the Royal Society, the Royal Academy of Engineering, World Academy of Art and Science, and Foreign Fellow of US National Academy of Engineering. Australian Technological Science and Engineering Academy, corresponding member of Australian Academy of Sciences and Foreign Associate of National Academy of Science USA. Is also an associate foreign member of American Academy of Arts and Sciences, fellow of National Academy of Inventors. Professor Mashelkar is recipient of the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru Technology Award, and civilian awards of the Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan. He is also recipient of G.D. Birla Scientific Research Award and the Vishwakarma Medal, Jawaharlal Nehru Birth Centenary Lecture, S.S. Bhatnagar Medal, and Etienne Wolf Ramanujan Lecture of INSA. He is also recipient of Lifetime Achievement Award by the Indian Science Congress, the Science Medal, and Lenovo Science Prize of the World Academy of Sciences. 42 universities have honored him with honorary doctorates. Sir, very welcome to this session. And before we go into a lecture, I will request Professor Gayatri Hassan to read the citation.
Thank you, Chandrama. It's a great pleasure to welcome Professor Mashelkar. As you said, Professor Mashelkar is not a stranger to any of us. He's very well known. And this medal for the year 2020 has been awarded to Professor Mashelkar for his path-breaking scientific contributions in transport phenomena and in thermodynamics of swelling, superswelling, and shrinking polymers, modeling of polymerization reactors, and engineering analysis of non-Newtonian flows. It is through his sustained and visionary campaign of the growing awareness for intellectual property rights that this very important issue was understood in Indian academics as well as in among Indian corporates. So he spearheaded the successful challenge to the US patent on the use of turmeric for wound healing and also the patent on basmati rice. These landmark cases have set up new paradigms in the protection of India's traditional knowledge base, besides leading to the setting up of India's traditional knowledge digital library. So with that, I request Professor Mashelkar to present his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. First of all, I want to say how grateful I am, how privileged I feel, how proud I feel to receive this honor, which is for promotion and service to science. All that I've done in my life is do science and serve science. So I feel very, very grateful. Revered scientists who have preceded, many of them are my gurus. To follow them is a great honor, and I accept that with great humility. What I'm going to do is to talk about inclusive innovation, because I believe that science must solve, technology must transform, and innovation must impact. So I have been very passionate about innovation. I always said the I in India must stand for innovation and not imitation or inhibition. And in that category of innovation, inclusive innovation is particularly important, to include those who are excluded. We talk about growth, but it has to be inclusive growth, and India needs accelerated inclusive growth. So therefore, inclusive innovation led accelerated inclusive growth is going to be the mantra. What I'm going to do is not to talk about the books that you see behind me, but the book of my life, and about what I have and what I have. The journey begins actually when I joined National Chemical Laboratory, but a turning point was when the Australian Academy honored me with a fellowship in Canberra, and they invited me to give the ATSE Innovation Forum lecture in Canberra, 20th April 2008, I remember. And this was on Gandhian engineering, more from less for more. That was the topic I chose. And I began my talk by saying that in the 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi was the greatest gift from India to the world, and 21st century, it is going to be Gandhian engineering. Of course, everybody was puzzled because one knows chemical engineering, aeronautical engineering, metallurgical engineering. What is Gandhian engineering? So the inspiration came from what Mahatma Gandhi had famously said. The first was, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. That means you preserve your resources and you keep them for your children, their grandchildren, and so on and so forth. So that gives you the message of more from less. You have also said that I would prize every invention of science made for the benefit for all. That means do it for more and more people. So if you put it together, it becomes getting more from less for more people, by the way. Not just more profit, but for more people. And this more from less for more later on got translated into MLM, and everybody started talking about MLM. MLM became the new mantra, which is another form of inclusive innovation, I would say. Now, when you talk about getting more from less, all right, what you're talking about is, despite income inequality, ensure access equality, all right? The same class. That means it is affordable excellence, if you like. Because normally we say what is affordable can't be excellent, what is excellent can't be so on. So break that myth and say, despite income inequality, ensure access equality. Can you do that? Well, you can do that. This is a familiar scene now. India has more than 1 billion mobile, and you can see the strata from which these two ladies come. The income inequality, maybe 1,000:1. But if you look at the access equality, it is 1:1. It's amazing. Now, More from less for more in practice, if you see, can you ask for a hepatitis B vaccine which is 40 times cheaper? Not 40%, but high quality, affordable, excellent. Can you ask for a high quality cataract eye surgery? 100 times cheaper. All right, but yet high quality. High quality open heart surgery, 20 times cheaper, not just 20% cheaper, but yet high quality. High quality artificial food, 300 times cheaper, not 300%. And amazingly, they look all impossible, but they have been done in India. India has special genes on MLM, creating more from less for more. Now, if you look at the Gandhian engineering MLM mantra, that has been spreading around the world because I gave this talk in 2008, and then came sort of a breakthrough that C.K. Prahlad, one of the greatest thought leaders that we have had, and I wrote a paper called Innovation's Holy Grail, More from Less for More. This was published in Harvard Business Review. And by the way, it was ranked as among the top 10 research innovation. And it is interesting, it was exactly 10 years ago that we wrote that paper. So we are celebrating a decade of that particular paper. What happened, we did this paper in July, August 2010, but World Economic Forum had a special session on more from less for more. Because this accelerated inclusive growth was becoming an issue, inclusive innovation was becoming an issue, and getting it by doing more from less for more turned out to be a strategy. So we felt very greatly honored that World Economic Forum actually did that. I remember giving a TED talk actually, and it has had so many views, has been translated into 23 languages, and one feels absolutely delighted with the response that it actually got. And then, once you take up a theme, this is about spreading the message of science, promotion, and service to science. This was service to inclusive innovation. I went around the world. In fact, the journey began, as you know, in Canberra and Melbourne. Okay, in Canberra, where I gave the first talk in 2008. And I remember the very following year, I was invited in Washington in the World Bank, where in the presence of a lot of their leadership, I gave this talk about inclusive innovation, more from less for more, and how this will help reduce the social disharmony and create a better world. The net result of that was there was a $55 million Vietnam inclusive innovation project that came into being, and World Bank started setting up these inclusive innovation programs around. It is remarkable, this was done in 2009, and 2019, just recently, we had this meeting of Global Solutions Summit in the UN headquarters. And I remember on 13 May, I gave the opening keynote. So in a decade's time, from Washington to New York, and from World Bank to UN headquarters, this has not diminished. I remember having done that. I was invited in Manila in the Asian Development Bank. They have a special honor of what they call is a Distinguished Speaker of the Year. And I remember again talking about this, and that had a tremendous influence in terms of ADB's policy. And they started including some of these programs within that. And then I remember in Brussels, I had the invitation from the European Commission commissioner who was responsible for innovation, and almost 2,000 participants. I remember talking about the same subject. And I remember in their strategic thinking, they said, if we don't get frugal innovation in, basically we'll be taken over, because if very high quality products of great excellence are created affordably, where will we be? And that started getting sort of incorporated within that. And I remember then being invited to Beijing. China is ahead of us in practically everything. The way their science, technology, innovation has moved is absolutely incredible. And I will talk about it. But there is one issue where they accept our ascendancy and they accept that we are the leaders, and that is inclusive innovation. So there was a World Bank organized congress where I actually talked about this. And you know, their top 5 agendas were one of them was removing social disharmony. And this idea of creating access equality, access to education, access to health, access to financial services, despite the income inequality, appealed to them so much that they actually invited the World Bank team. I was a senior consultant there. And you can see their World Bank report on inclusive innovation on the web. If you just click on that, and you will find there is a huge imprint of our thoughts with regard to more from less for more and the strategies corresponding to that. And I feel particularly proud about it. And of course, then there were lots of talk in Europe on different occasions. I spoke in Tokyo, in Colombo, in Sri Lanka. There were talks in Cape Town and Pretoria, and Berlin, where the WITRO, you know, the World Association of Industrial Technology Research Organization, I gave the sort of opening keynote and so on and so forth. So to me, this has been a terrific journey, I say, in terms of creating some sort of a thought leadership from India on this Gandhian engineering or inclusive innovation or more from less for more. You might ask, where is India? Well, in India, I have spoken extensively. Like I'm speaking today, I've given 30, 40 lectures. As a matter of fact, when I was a member of Prime Minister's National Innovation Council, I remember proposing a national mission on Indian inclusive innovation. It went very far. And I hope very much that the new policy on science, technology, innovation 2020 that is being drawn very ably by our Dr. Vijay Raghavan, our principal scientific advisor, getting everybody included. Is really wants to have everybody's views. I hope that Indian inclusive innovation will, as a mission or as an initiative, will find a major place that is very, very badly needed. Well, you can spread the messages, but then you will say, what are you doing yourself to sort of help the cause? I'll come back to what I did with CSR with regard to inclusive innovation. But I started a personal initiative, which is after my mother, Anjani Mashelkar, Inclusive Innovation Award, and created a foundation in her name. It is called mashelkarfoundation.org. You can see our activities there. And then we started giving awards on innovation the MLM way, more from less for more, which are the characteristics of affordability, accessibility, adaptability, etc. And the most important part there, I must say, that I'm not a great believer in best practice. I believe in the next practice. All right. So these awards have to be, the awardees have to be ahead of the rest of the world. Now, when I say view from my personal lens, I'm going to take you through this decade of these awardees, what they have done, and what are the lessons for inclusive innovation that we have learned from these. You know, we started with, in 2011, this 2020, this is the 10th year. And I remember Shyam Vasudeva of Trinetra got that award. What was special about it? He created this portable, non-invasive, non-mydriatic, low-cost devices for detecting 5 eye diseases. And what was his driver? His driver was that 90% of eye care equipment were not affordable for hospitals in India. They were imported, not portable, needed a lot of power, a lot of expertise. So he created something, and you see the photographs here. They were 6 times cheaper. They could be operated by a minimally trained operator. That is Indian innovation, by the way, innovation, where some of these factors you have to take into account. And as you can see, he has made a big impact, screening more than 5 million people, and it has gone to 25 countries. One feels very proud when our Prime Minister says, made in India, but for the world. I think this is a brilliant example. The 2012 award went to Mishkin Ingawale for what is called as TouchBeam. What was it? what he did was he created a non-invasive hemoglobin test. All right. And again, if you look at the best practice and next practice, the best practice is going invasive with needles. The next practice is non-invasive, no needles. The cost per test, 150 rupees. Here the cost of per test is 10 rupees. And actually, it is needle-free and painless anemia screening in less than 2 minutes. You know, so if you see the features here, up here, what he is using is high technology. Photoplethysmography, spectrophotometry, advanced software, photon scattering. So I think the main point one tries to make here is that making high technology work for the poor is very easy. Making low technology work for the poor is very easy. But making high technology work for the poor is difficult. And that's what we ought to be doing when we say more from less, not less from less. Now he has moved, of course, the award was given for what you see on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, he has come out with an innovation where it captures the picture of conjunctiva, and he uses a method by which the hemoglobin content. In fact, it is the quantifying the conjunctival pallor, which is the sort of paleness of skin and mucous membrane that is caused due to reduction of oxyhemoglobin in blood. That's what he is trying to do. So this is absolutely wonderful. If you look at the next award, 2015, Rahul Rastogi got it for Sanket, which is a portable ECG device. What does it do? It is rupees 5 per test ECG device. Sanket 1.0 that you can see here is a personal 12-lead ECG event monitor. It is portable, very small in terms of size. And if you see, for example, the new variety that he has got, it is called Sanket Live. And you can actually go to Amazon and order it. And you will get it in this form, by the way. And then the important part here is he moves from best practice to next practice, not lying down and putting 12 leads, but basically a monitor which is portable. You can carry it in your pocket. The next award, 2016, was Mihir Shah. This was the iBreast exam device. You can see it here. And what is special about it is that it's a low-cost tactile sensor that measures tissue stiffness difference in real time, non-invasively and without pain. So it is ultra-portable, accurate, with minimal training, wireless, and cloud connected. Gives you actually instant results. And most importantly, his company and GE Healthcare, they have come together and they will be taking it to now 25 countries for over 500 million women. You can see the kind of difference it can make with such affordable $1 test, which is non-invasive. It is US FDA certified, CE certified, approved by all regulatory agencies. The other award that we gave was to Dr. Naveen Khanna, whom all of you will know. He's a fellow of our academy for dengue day one test. And this detects dengue in 15 minutes. It has become a market leader with more than 75% market share. It has created 10 million dengue tests so far. And once again, ultra low cost, 25% of the conventional test. And also excellence in terms of diagnosis of both primary and secondary infection. The 2018 award was Vinay Kumar for Anupath. What did he do? He has created this path show which gives you 8 test results within 60 seconds. No special storage conditions required. Again, ultra low cost, 20% of the conventional testing method. And this has spread very widely thanks to Tata Trust. The deployment of product has started in February 2018 and it is going to a number of different centers all across the country. The 2019 was an interesting year, by the way. 150 years of celebrating the Mahatma. So we went to this team which created something very unusual, which was fitting for that year, and I'll explain to you what it was. It is called Gen Robotics. And they created this Bandicoot. You know, they were college-going kids, as a matter of fact, to solve a problem that has plagued us. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi had said sanitation is more important than political freedom. And Supreme Court had been very harsh with the government, saying that sewers are gas chambers where manual scavengers are sent to die. Do something about it. And that is something about it that needed to be done for these reasons. If you look at manholes, at least 4.5 million people are engaging in manual scavenging as their livelihood. So many people die. 98% men, women are diagnosed with fatal diseases. And the data show that one manual scavenging death every 5 days. So no wonder the Supreme Court was so very harsh. So how do you solve the problem? I think the basic issue was the idea of manhole is itself terrible. How can you talk about man in the hole? It has to be a machine in the hole. So what happens is you have a system where with a simple user interface, you create a robot which goes into that manhole. And the way it works, therefore, is that these manual scavengers, for example, they are actually then trained to become robot operators. And you can see, that's why I've given this heading of access to dignity. Can you just imagine that if the children in the school were asked by somebody, what's your father doing? They would put their head down and say, manual scavenger. Now they will put their head up and say, he's robot operator. You can just see the difference. And I'm very happy to see, you know, when this award was given, 2nd October, last year, we chose that time to give the award, and 17 November, when my mother left us, we give the award every year. This year also we'll do that virtually, of course. And the important part is these technologies get developed, but at the end of it, there have to be policies to take them forward. And I'm very happy that this news of this particular robot Bandicoot, there was one Rajya Sabha MP, Amar Sable, who had met me. And coincidentally, he happened to be a member of this particular committee, which is looking at manual scavenging. And a mention of that was made, a demonstration was made, and it's incredible. One thing led to the other. I'm not saying this was responsible for it, because government was thinking about this problem for a long time. But they have now come out with this bill, Employed Manual Scavengers, the rehabilitation bill. And most importantly, the proposes to completely mechanize sewer cleaning. You can quite clearly see one of the biggest curves that we had will get eliminated thanks to technologies like this. Now, you would say this is until 2019. What about 2020? Well, I can't disclose the award winners, but I can tell you the sample in terms of what we are getting. For example, this year, by the way, I have created 2 awards. One was for general category, as you saw in different areas. But this year we said, for people who have done something for COVID, we must do something for them. So this award is for that purpose. And this year, this Dozy, for example, again, a startup, you know, they have created what you call, you can take any bed and convert it, you know, step down in an ICU facility where it's a contact-free vitals monitor. So what you do is that the place, the device that they have on the mattress, and then connect to internet and monitor remotely using the dashboard. So you can actually do this with high-risk patients, elders, home isolation for COVID patients can be done, ward monitoring can be done, whole range of issues, and it is 20 times cheaper than products used in ICU. It's a wonderful product. There is one in the general category that I want to highlight among many, for example, and this is about pregnant women in remote villages. And what they have done, this Save Mom is an IoT-based maternal healthcare solution that monitors mother's health using smart wearables, okay, that collect various physiological signals. And 1,000 days care to mother is just for 1,000 rupees. The vitals they collect digitally, then allocate mobile application, and then it moves forward to doctor's portal. They already covered 100+ villages, benefited 2,000+ pregnant women. They're already seeing the effect in terms of average weight of newborns going. And by the way, I must say something very important. You know, this Allware, the data goes directly to cloud, by the way. And I saw recently a presentation where they were talking about some of the challenges where these public health personnel, when they record data, one demonstrated, as a matter of fact, that there were data which did not look real at all, because there were 6 babies whose weight was put down exactly as 2 kg, 2 kg, 2 kg, and 2 kg, etc. None of that, you know, directly it goes to go. So there is no intermediate at all. In fact, the Indian solutions need to be like this, so that all these vulnerabilities actually go away. So let me take you through the learnings from this 10-year-long journey of Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Awards. You know, the 10 tenets of inclusive innovation that we have learned from this 10 years. First is about empathy driven by personal experience, innovation across product, process, and business model, co-creating with consumers. There is a soft funding that is required initially, and patience, of course. You require partnerships across scale, public policy, talent, technology, and trust. There has to be a purpose, perseverance, and passion. Doing well by doing good is possible, and the assured success comes only through assured innovation. Let me take through each one of these. Empathy driven by personal experience. You know, for example, this BioSense. This young man was living in a remote village with chronic condition of juvenile diabetes. He himself had to be using injections every day, etc. So he understood the problem, and that is how he created it, his own problem. If you look at the robotic team, they witnessed the tragic death of some Carol manual scavengers, you know, personally, and that touched their heart. If you look at this fellow Mihir Shah, for example, his mother-in-law was diagnosed rather late with breast cancer because she was afraid of mammography and you know, the painful process there. He said, "I will create something which is completely painless." If you look at Rahul Rastogi, for example, his heart ailment, suffering of father, he used to put him in a car, take him 5 kilometers away for a hospital, and the rest of it, etc. He said, "Why can't I create something which is portable ECG?" And similarly, you saw this fellow Neo, for example, and Leo, as a matter of fact, saw, as a matter of fact, a cyclist die and bleed to death as he was taking in the car. And he said, "Can I not stop that bleeding instantly?" And he created something which can do it in 13 minutes, so as to say. And it has gone all over the world at the moment. So empathy driven by personal experience. Then innovation across product, process, and business model, you know, because when you create technology, you're displacing somebody. So you have to give them the assurance. Like, for example, manual scavengers, you are not displacing their jobs. You are training them as robot operators, and is the same thing that Mihir Shah did. The other one is co-creating with consumers. You don't know the problem until you actually meet. For example, here is this Trinetra story. When this was put in the sort of slums, nobody would come there. And then it was realized, why don't they come? Because you come, then you put those drops, then your eyes get dilated, and then for 3 hours you can't see, so you're losing sort of a complete day. And when that realization comes from a customer perspective, this was something that was non-invasive without drops. How can you actually do it? So co-creating with consumers becomes extremely important. Then you require some soft funding, you know, to start with. This is a big problem with startups because our venture capital has become vulture capital. Basically, they start looking at profits and returns, etc. immediately. But you know, idea is like a seed. It requires certain initial patience till it grows into a tree, and then you have the fruit, basically. But we are not prepared to wait. So you have to have some sympathetic funding, patient capital. Like, for example, the robot team was held by Anand Mahindra. Kiran Mazumdar helped this iBrace. And I'm very proud to say, when I was DJ of CSIR, we created this Technopreneurs Promotion Program. It was a very unique program, by the way. No bank guarantee, nothing. And you are given a grant to just try out anything at all. It was completely based on trust. And I remember this particular device that I showed to you a little earlier got TAPE funding to start with, because you require that soft money. And of course, Tata Trust help. In fact, there is a remarkable story, by the way. When we gave him the award, it was a 6 lead, basically. All right. And I said, nothing to you require 12 lead. Then Rahul said, no, but we require 46 lakhs. He showed to me the inventory. And I remember going to Tata Trust, showed to them 6 lead to 12 lead is what we require, 46 lakhs. And within 3 weeks, they wrote out a check, by the way. That is how it got done. That was a soft funding. It was not a loan. It was not an equity. So this is a new learning that we had. Then partnership to scale. If you want to go to large scale, you have to partner. Like GE Life Sciences for 25 countries. After they got the award, I introduced them to Tata's, and Tata Bravo will do the mass manufacturing and promote it, etc. Then you require public policy, by the way. Like, for example, different states have helped in moving these. In fact, this morning, I had the pleasure of being the chief guest at the introduction of these bandicoots in Mohali, by the way, where the ministers and others actually participated in that process. So it is going to 11 states now, and states are taking active interest, and you require public policy. Then this is an interesting story, by the way, Talent, Technology and Trust. You know, when Naveen created this sort of 15-minute test, for example, nobody would take it. They were importing from South Korea, they were importing from Australia, they were importing from US, and suddenly a pandemic came and all the kids were exhausted. Then what do? You know, then they wrote to these countries, and those out of that, only South Korea said we will supply quickly. Others said we can't. And then South Korean ship came, and it did not come to India. It went to Africa. So we had no kits. And we had no other option but to go for Naveen Khanna's kit. All right. And that is where he got an entry. And then today, he has got 75% market share. He was 0%, now 75%. But just imagine if that ship had come to India, he would still be twiddling his thumbs, basically. So how do we create trust in the technology that we have? That is extremely important. The 8th point is purpose, perseverance, and passion. All these, by the way, all the winners, they are interesting stories. I've interacted very closely with them. Perseverance is most important because it's always too early to quit. Quitters are never winners, and winners are never quitters. Each one of them is an inspiring story. Then the 9th one is doing well by doing good. In fact, all of them, by the way, they are helping social causes, each one of them. But each one of them is profitable. Each one of them is making money. So therefore, when we say, the corporate social responsibility model 1 is doing well and doing good. What does that mean? You make a lot of money and then say, hey, what do I do for the poor? And then you create a foundation, like Bill Gates created a foundation after he became very rich. And it is doing a fantastic job now, but it was an foundation. But here, the idea is that doing good itself is a business. Each one of them, as you saw, it is saving lives, it is doing something for the poorest of the poor and so on, and yet they are profitable. So the new model is doing well by doing good. Doing good itself is a business. And the last point is that in order to be successful, you have a matrix called assured innovation. It has to be affordable, scalable, otherwise it will not make an impact. Sustainable, otherwise in 1 or 2 years you will just vanish. Universal, it has to be user-friendly, as you saw in all these cases. It has to be rapid, like, for example, Naveen Khanna's test. Normally you take 1 or 2 days. No, he said 15 minutes and he captured the market. It has to be excellence in terms of technology. I've shown it again and again how high technology has been used. It has to be distinctive because we do too many of Me Too products, by the way. First in India, etc. Doesn't come very easily. That's very, very important. Now, this framework, by the way, that I showed to you has been captured in my book, which came out in Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. The idea was very simple. The idea was, why does a frog leap? He leaps because he's afraid of the predators and jumps a few feet. So we said, why? We should pole vault. The size of the pole determines the size of your aspiration. And this book, I'm very happy to say, by the way, won the business book of the year last year. So not bad for a scientist to win. Of course, my colleague Ravi Pandit and I are very proud of that particular fact. And you can see when Ratan Tata endorsed it, He said this captivating book through its impressive assured innovation framework. That assured innovation, that assured, by the way, has become a national this thing now. I mean, when I was chairing the Swachh Bharat standing committee, for selecting technologies, we introduced it in ministry, using that framework to screen the technology so that India gets only the best which will be successful. And that has gone to a number of places, including the corporates are using it. In fact, Bombay Management Association has created what is called as a Assured Innovation Entrepreneurship Award, which went to Byju's, by the way, this year, because that gives you a very rigorous. The last point, in 7-8 minutes, I'll finish. One is that the inequalities have been enormously amplified by pandemic. As you can quite clearly see, normally they would have been reducing like this, but as you can see, they have suddenly increased. And percentage reduction in poverty, which was reducing by 1.2%, 1.5%, has suddenly increased by 7.1%. So years of progress has gone in days. So therefore, getting more from less for more, inclusive innovation becomes even more important. Let me take just one issue. I can give a 2-hour lecture on this, but one issue: education. Education is future, and this lady understands the importance of this, as we all know. But just giving a scholarship or some help, will it be useful? No. As you can see, 1.6 billion children have been thrown out of school, and they're doing online learning. And 30% of them don't have devices. So there is this disastrous consequence of digital deprivation for poor children that is coming up. For example, there's a story from Assam, but it is not that. Students are committing suicide for not being able to attend online classes in so many states. There is one in Punjab, Assam, Maharashtra on the other day from Satara, West Bengal, Kerala, Karnataka, etc. So what do? We have to create digital access. How do you do that? The devices have to be cheap, okay, so that they can afford. I mean, there is a heart-rending story of Kuldeep Kumar from Himachal Pradesh, who sold his only cow for 6,000 rupees. Only cow for 6,000 rupees to get smartphones. All right. But supposing we made them affordable, would it not be possible? We had this technology. For example, Akash 2010. I'm talking about 10 years ago. Can you just imagine this being largely available today? What would have happened? This was the dream that we had. Never came true. What is wrong? I remember when I was the Director General of CSI, we created New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative. And we gave grand challenges. Like one of the grand challenges I did was multifunctional PC with rupees 10,000, because the cost was 100,000 plus, basically. And we did come out with Mobilis, $200 laptop, by the way. 50 rupees a dollar was the senior Vinay Kulkarni. You can see there, we are launching, we are all smiling. Where is it? Well, to a limited extent, the one high net worth individual in Pune created that DSK Mobilis, but what are the numbers? We should have had millions. We did not have them. In fact, we had a Simputer in 2001. In fact, it was said by Bruce Sterling, New York Times magazine, that the most significant innovation in computer technology in 2001 was not Apple's gleaming Titanium PowerBook G4 or Microsoft Windows XP. It was the Simputer, a net-linked, radically simple, portable computer intended to bring computer revolution. Did we bring it? No. Nobody had to commit suicide, by the way, if these were available. So what we require is in order to get the societal benefit, there has to be a strong base of technology, not only technology, and you saw technology, but also policy. And what we're missing were bold and innovative public procurement policy for and of innovation. So normally what happens when you create a Simputer, there is an order that is placed by the government, let's say for 10,000. And you get a market feedback, you improve the product, etc., and you create a business model, and then you go. That is how the whole world is doing. So therefore, actually, I have done a paper on innovative public procurement policy for fueling assured inclusive innovation. And when Amitabh Kant came to me saying that we are looking at 17 great ideas which will take us forward, he has created a book, This Path Ahead, Anthology of Transformative Ideas for India. This is the kind of policy that we have proposed, and such policies need to be implemented. in Maharashtra State Innovation Society, where I happen to be the co-chairman, we have actually done it by changing the policies completely for startups, including that of tendering, where the minimum experience, etc., is not required, and we give them work orders directly. And I'm sure this is happening in other states also. We require that. Okay. Now, what is the responsibility of us, Indian National Science Academy, scientific community? We have to move from frontier innovation to inclusive innovation, because here the drivers are curiosity or market driven, but we should also look at applications that are impact driven, cost conscious science and research. We are driven by sophisticated research capabilities popular among policymakers, but innovative entrepreneurs faced with challenge of scarcity, can we do something for them? We look at well-established route from idea to product to market, newer routes, not yet established market. Margins, high R&D investments, so long premiums, etc. No. Can we create high volume, low margin products and work for them, as you saw? The goals, improving productivity and economic growth, no. Improving lives of people. And then you will feel, oh my God, if I do that, where will I have my paper in PNAS and this, etc.? I'm sorry, that is not right. George Whitesides, for example, whom I adore, he wrote a paper in PNAS recently, which has to do with a $25 device, which does actually miracles in terms of testing. So you can have that device, do well, and also do good in terms of publication. And I'm happy that this is getting promoted now by creating this young Gandhian, young technological innovation. Our president gave away the awards, as you can see, with the minister being there and some of us being there. And I'm very happy that this is moving through the Indian thought leadership. But business must also come in. They must move from technologically sophisticated, performance-rich products to frugal, functional, but high-quality products. They believed in removing features to reduce costs. No, you have to reinvent the product from ground up. Premium price, high margins, no, affordable price, high volumes. Not just technology push, product out approach, but customer-centric, market-based approach. Current markets, old money, no. New markets, new money. And you develop what products to transform emerging market? No, sorry. We have to create new global growth platforms based on emerging markets. And I am seeing some of the products that we are developing. See, as far as affordable excellence is concerned, as long as you meet excellence, people will actually go for it, and you can create markets everywhere. I want to end by just saying something which to me is the most important part of this talk. You know, look at this rich man. He is wearing a $12,000 suit with a lot of sort of possibilities, you know, in terms of sensing and the rest of it. But what made the cover page was a $28 food. That was the Jaipur food. And it said that the global source of landmines left 1,000 limbers, and then 2 gifted Indians developed it. And just look at the performance of this Jaipur food patient. See the way he is able to climb. See the flexural strength, for example, the way it bends. Can you see that? Right? And then you will see what he does. He actually jumps. All right. And any one of you who is a material scientist will know what it takes for that material to sort of withstand such jumps with such weights and so on and so forth. Did it hurt? He says, no, not at all. But now what he does, to me, is very symbolic. Just see, and inspirational. He runs. And how fast does he run? He does a kilometer in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Now, unfortunately, we are having this digital meeting. I can't see any of you. But when I'm in an audience and I show this film, I ask how many of you can. And I can tell you 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 hands go up. What does it mean? That a fellow who would have been crawling, you're empowered him to such an extent that 98 out of 100 of us, he's able to beat. That is inclusive innovation for me. That is more from less for more. And that is what is going to create an equitable world with no social disharmony. That is the world of our dreams. That is the India of our dreams. So My friends, what I've done is to tell you a decade-long journey. You must be wondering, what am I doing after retirement? So this is my 10-year account for you also. Inclusive innovation, I'm completely committed to that in many, many different ways. And I'm very happy to see these waves are sort of moving forward to create this better world by doing more from less for more as inclusive innovation, which includes everyone and provides a chance for everyone so that nobody is left out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mashelkar. Thank you very much for this brilliant lecture on innovation that shows us how affordable innovation has led to low-cost devices, resulting in huge benefits to society, penetrating into the rural sector even. And switch off your, yes, and the moving stories that you presented of people who are actually using these affordable devices, and that has improved the quality of their lives and given them a meaning to live, is really touching our heart. And I would like to thank you for this very touching and wonderful lecture. I would now like to call Professor Singhvi to say something.
I think before I propose a vote of thanks, I would encourage some people to ask questions, although it is an award lecture, but it has been so fascinating a lecture that I cannot but help initiate some discussion. So I will welcome questions, a very short questions, and I hope Professor Mashelkar would agree to respond. I hope you will kindly agree to respond to these questions.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, Professor Singhvi?
Yes, please. Please identify yourself and then ask. And all others may kindly mute their mic.
Please switch off your microphone.
Good afternoon, Professor Mashelkar. Excellent talk, really thought-provoking. I would
Can't hear you.
ask.
Can't hear you.
Drive these people. Foundation, how does your foundation actually find these innovative people? I mean, what is the methodology you apply?
That's a very interesting question. We have created a huge network. I'll tell you, because our team is a very young team. I just have 3 people, by the way, in the team, which actually scans through. One of the big advantage I have is wearing so many hats. So I chair Marico Innovation Foundation awards, and there are at least 7 or 8 awards committees that are there. So I have a, let us say, very wide view. So I bring something to the table. Also, having been on the boards, corporate social responsibility, we help the poor and etc. So that is the second part of it. The third part of it is our guru, Professor Anil Gupta. I've been the chairman of National Innovation Foundation, as you know, for 18 years, but he's the driver. He was the executive vice chairman, but he was the driver. I call him Modern Gandhi. He does Shodha Yatras on people's innovation, basically done by the people, for the people, because this is about democratization of innovation. Everyone is someone, and everyone can create an idea. So the kind of database that we have is actually phenomenal, I would say. So there are a number of these personal contacts, networks, and having been fortunate to be a part of these sort of networks, that has actually helped me quite a bit in identifying this.
Yes, Diti.
Thank you, Professor Mashelkar. That was a wonderful lecture. It's really inspiring to listen to it. I was just wondering whether you are looking from using inclusive innovation, whether you're also looking at possibilities in terms of climate change, because that's the big challenge that is coming up before all scientists, I think. And is there a possibility that you will also try and find people who are working in that field and perhaps try and find innovations in that, or at least encourage innovations in the context of climate change?
This is an excellent question. You can't have inclusion. Our next generations and the following generations will be excluded from this world if climate change comes in. In fact, this pandemic, if I may say, is a stark reminder. In fact, it's a trial.
Yes.
It's a trailer. It's a trailer to show, see the way the supply chains and demand has been destructed hugely, and the way it has proliferated around the world. This is a trailer of what will happen if we don't sort of contain it. All of us are excluded. So this is a part of inclusive innovation, and that comes in very much. In fact, I began with Gandhiji's statement,
That's right. Yes.
From less, yeah. In fact, we start from there, as a matter of fact. So what has happened, however, is that we do get entries, by the way. We do get entries even on climate change related issue. But what happens, as you saw, all the 10, I've not been able to show you all 10, but I showed 5 to 6. They are so amazingly outstanding, in terms of high technology, etc., etc. We don't get that level because our benchmarks are very high. It has to be very high technology, sort of making work. And many times there have been sort of tinkerings, basically, in this particular space. That doesn't work. So we will continuously look at that. That's why I have created 2 awards from this year, COVID related and non-COVID related, basically. But that COVID related is also connected with all problems, and climate change is one of those sort of serious issues. So I totally agree. The short answer is that we are very much in there because our inclusion definition includes that. But we have not had the kind of excellence because there is no compromise on excellence. That is the issue.
Okay, may I now invite Professor Manna? Professor Manna wanted to ask a question.
Sir, Indranil here.
Yeah, Indranil, can you ask your question?
So, sir, nobody can be more passionate than you about innovation. Many of us got inspired from you to pursue innovation, and nobody also can match your knowledge and enthusiasm even today. Sir, having steered the path of innovation for decades, and also considering the fact that almost all technology institutions in the country, including IITs, all of them have incubation center, incubation cell, entrepreneurship cell of various forms. The translation hasn't happened to the extent we desired. The translation of knowledge into products and technology. And this is what would make the country not only rich, but also enabled. Sir, what did we not do well? What went wrong, or what is still lacking from your experience?
Yes, I think that's again is an excellent question. I'll tell you where it starts. It starts, idea is like a seed, okay? And you have to put it in a fertile soil, basically, but also give it inputs at that time. So the first thing is that we are very risk averse. Right from beginning, if we start looking at fruit without the patience of growing the fruit, basically, it doesn't work. All right. So therefore, that is where we created the NIMITLI program, New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative. Those risk-taking genes are in me, as you know. At NCL, I created this kite flying fund. Success possibilities 1 in 100, and we funded it. Then when in CSR, I created this new idea fund where success 1 in 100 will sort of support it. And then we created NIMITLI at the national level, once again, giving grand challenges like you saw. All right. But the government is doing that. The private sector is not doing that. That's number one. Number two, the venture capital companies don't do that. In fact, I'm very deeply involved in startups, by the way, not only as an advisor, but in many, many different ways. And what I find is that anytime there is an idea which is out of the box, they ask, but has it been done by them, by US, by Europe, or wherever else? So there is no funding for that. That is where the risk capital from, in fact, when we created the NIMITLI, that funding used to be called not venture capital, adventure capital. The adventure capital is missing. That initial part, that valley, that's why in the 10 tenets of Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award, I showed to you, like for example, this Sanket that I showed to you, all right, would not have been in this shape today if the Tatas had not written a check for 46 lakhs as a grant, not as a loan, not as equity, basically, you know. So that is the missing part, I would say. People come out with great ideas, by the way. I'll tell you, it is incredible. In fact, I've just written a paper on my pride in terms of seeing how the scientific and technological community has risen post-pandemic. You know, it's not just CSR, it's startups and this, that, and the other, etc. It's terrific. But having done that now, in order to take it forward, for example, people have created ventilators for Indian conditions. All right. There is no electricity, like Bombay background you saw. Interruption, basically. No trained manpower. All right. And etc. 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 To meet that, people have created sort of outstanding research. But that is one step. And I chaired this Marico Innovation Foundation 2.5 crore grand challenge, you know, and we gave them the award. But what next? Having got that now, they need to be supported to create the potential markets around the world. So these systems, and particularly the public procurement policy, like I said, government is the biggest buyer, by the way, of many services. So what we are doing in Maharashtra State Innovation Society is that government is a big buyer, and basically they give work orders without competition based on excellence. But they require some framework, so we have given them the assured framework. If it meets it, give it. For example, somebody who made drones, okay, which can move on the surface of water, and he was struggling. But Pune Municipal Corporation gave him an order. They cleared our Mula-Mutha rivers after Ganpati Ganesh Chaturthi, and now he has got orders from Nashik, from Satara, from Kolhapur, from here, there, etc., etc., etc. You know, but if government had not done it, he would not have sort of basically moved it. So there are about half a dozen things we need to do from industry, from this, and at the end of it, the society itself, by the way. If your son wants to become a startup, you know, and create jobs rather than seek jobs, we must encourage that. That risk-taking must come sort of basically. So it's an ecosystem issue. I would say it is an ecosystem issue.
I have many hands, but we will take first from Professor Sood. We'll ask you a question. Welcome, Professor Sood.
Thank you, Dr. Mashelkar. It was really a fascinating and inspiring talk. Really, as always, it invokes so many ideas. I was just wondering, to scale up this whole spirit of innovation, is there any thought given to include it in national education policy so that in an early age, this can be, you know, integrated along with many other faculties which have to be developed? So have you written about this to this in some way, or can academies help in any way to really take it to this NEP?
Excellent. Excellent suggestion, Ajay. I always expect something like this from you. You know, very frankly, that has to be ingrained. All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of the limitation in terms of the amount of time that I had, I have not included some of the slides. But I can show you how that trigger has to take place from young age. And that idea of that is where we created this Todphod Jod and now Atal innovation, those incubators and so on, so forth, etc. Particularly for young children. In fact, we had called it Todphod Jod for a simple reason that we don't touch this will break, that will break, etc., etc. So experimenting, failing, always tell students, fail is FAIL, first attempt in learning, etc. Yeah. So this has to be taught right from the beginning, and don't give them the Microsoft stories and Bill Gates stories. There are stories within India, basically. Like, in fact, I'm going to bring out a book after the decade of this Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award, and they are all heroes. Those people that you saw, they are heroes. And for each, there is an emotional story. How did they see this and how did they move that? Get that incorporated in the textbooks, etc. You know, I totally agree with you. And it has to start from there. It has to start from there. You can't ask a 26-year-old, "Hey, from tomorrow you will become innovator."
Yeah.
It has to be 6.
Now, may I invite Professor Kishan Lal? I saw a hand from Professor Kishan Lal.
All my friends are there.
Yes, yes.
Kishan Lal?
Yes, sir. I am now seeing it. Professor Mashelkar, as always, it was a remarkable presentation, very inspiring, and great pleasure to hear you about your last 10 years' work. I mean, if I see, it is impossible to say what you have been contributing. It's so much voluminous, quality-wise very high. Now, I have one suggestion and question. You know, as a co-chairman of Inter-Academy Partnership, we have now nearly 140 academies, including medical academies, and they range from African region where development is not very high, and including all the most developed countries. India also is some way very developed. And as a co-chair of that, I have an idea if the type of fantastic things you have done can be integrated there, there is some money also involved. Why I am mentioning is that the reason is that, you know, this COVID has made travel impossible, like your lecture is being held here, but all by web-based. And we find ourselves into IAP that our travel money is saved. And now we are thinking how to make best use of it for humanities. And this is because I think about a month ago, 2 months ago, when we were reviewing it, quite some money is left because people are not traveling and main cost is there. That is there. Then in COVID, we have a lot of very good reports. We are now involved in WHO, UN committees and other things. So my suggestion would be if some kind of project where academy, our INSA can sphere that, because IAP is finally the membership of all academies. So this will make a great global impact. That is why I mention, and you are a great leader and you can definitely take it to that height.
No, that's an excellent suggestion, Dr. Kishan Lal. I would put it this way. The fact that we have IAP with academies coming from the least developed to developing to developed world is a big plus.
Yes.
My personal experience as the president of Global Research Alliance for 12 years. Global Research Alliance was CSR India, CSR Australia, CSR South Africa, Fraunhofer Gesellschaft Germany, VTT Finland, DTI Denmark, TNO Netherlands, Battelle US, and CIRIM Malaysia. Okay. Now, if you look at GDP per capita of all these countries, it was like India at the time we started was barely $500, and the maximum was $5,000, the richest country, GDP per capita, 50,000. Okay. So what happened was that we created what is called as a global knowledge pool for global good through global funding. Okay. And we started taking up a project. That is where the Vietnam Inclusive Innovation Award the project came, by the way, which was supported by World Bank. So funding became possible for this and get the best expertise from the most developed nation science, Vietnam. And you can see now Vietnam where it is. You know, it has gone way, way ahead of India, as you must have seen. But when we started, where were they, as a matter of fact? So what happens that this mutual learning, so as to say, particularly in a diversified group like IAP, is enormously beneficial. So offline, I would like to talk to you and based on my own experience of Global Research Alliance, what we can do, we can definitely take it.
Okay, thank you. I have one hand, but I can't see the name. So anybody wants to ask one last question? I see one hand, rather two hands now. Yeah, I can see Dr. Pintel there now. I think there are more people waking up now. Dr. Pintel.
Good evening, Dr. Mashelkar.
Hey, hi, how are you, man? How are you?
Very well. I'm going to say something contradictory here, and I would like your reaction to that. See why we put innovation into boxes like high tech or frugal innovation. If we create a good atmosphere for manufacturing in the country and have large scale manufacturing going on of many, many different kind of technologies, Naturally, when the scales go up, the prices come down. But orienting it only that we should do frugal innovation means that we are putting fetters on ourselves, and it may not help in the long run. I would like to have your reaction to what I...
Well, I think you did not hear my word excellence. Excellence relates to quality, and quality is all that matters. How do you get that quality? All right. That is all that matters at the end, because even poor people have aspirations. How do you give high quality products to them? Like, for example, when Jio gives 4G LTE to the poorest of the poor at 5 rupees per GB, all right, everything else becomes unimportant. For scale, affordability is the most important part. That's it. So therefore, if high technology is going to cost a hell of a lot, that does not help anybody, because the poor will be completely left out. All right. So therefore, I think our conscious effort should be, how do we innovate? All right. There's no boxes. How do we innovate and achieve excellence? That's it. My lecture was about affordable excellence. Excellence, yes, there can be great lectures in terms of all sorts of unaffordable things. The moment you say affordable excellence, there is a transformation. Technology has to transform.
Oh, okay. Okay, sir. I have one question from on the chat box from Dr. Sandeep Verma. That what are the mega trends in circular innovation models for 2050?
Oh yes.
He wants your pick on this question. It's in chat box by Sandeep Verma. What are the mega trends in circular innovation models for 2050?
Yeah, circular economy is
innovation models, circular innovation models.
No, there is nothing like circular innovation. It is circular economy that one is talking about.
Yes.
And circular economy is from the birth of a product to its end. You know, there is an end-to-end sort of the solution where we, when you create a product, you check its entire lifetime and ensure that the net carbon footprint that you have is close to zero. That's circular economy. And that the corporates have taken up, by the way, now, because sustainability has to be sort of the driver. In fact, those of you who are interested can have a look at the talk that I gave recently on resilience, because after this pandemic, resilience has become most critical. And there, the adaptability, the agility, etc., resilient thinking, etc., matter. And one of the most important part to be resilient is climate change, climate awareness, and climate preparedness. And within that, circular economy becomes the most sort of important solution. And I sit on a number of boards, and each board, by the way, those who are involved in product manufacturing, particularly those which are consumer products, basically, they're all going for circular economy. In fact, if you look at the annual reports of all companies, they're obliged to say there is a full chapter on sustainability in which the circular and shared economy, there is another word, shared as well as circular, both actually have an imprint on. The last part I would like to mention is that, you know, these 3 Ds, digitalization, decentralization, and decarbonization, they are going to rule the world, and one is going to lead to the other. Like, look at work from home now. Work from home was possible because of digitalization, but it has led to decentralization and also decarbonization. My friend Ravi Pandit from KPIT was telling me on the other day, even after COVID is over, 50% of his people will work from home, because he says, I see no difference. And why should I transport people in 30, 40 buses, create carbon footprint, and waste their 3 hours of time, and so on and so forth. So that new trade is going to sort of the sort of future, and everything else will fit in these: digitalization, decentralization, decarbonization.
Yes, one last question by Dr. Hemant Majumdar. He has been waiting for Dr. Majumdar. Can you hear me? If there anybody else left who wants to ask one last question, I'll take.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
So this is the last question.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, Professor Mashelkar is a wonderful lecture, and I'm very much interested about two things. One is you talked about the equipment you have developed on the glucose estimation. The cost came down to ₹5, and also for ECG, electrocardiogram, that the cost can come down to ₹12. So, but even today, this electrocardiogram, the ECG machine, whatever is available, and you can go and test in the laboratory, they will ask you to pay 400 to 500 rupees, not less than that. So if your innovation cost only only 12 rupees, then I think that should be popularized to everywhere. It can be available to. I have a glucometer. I can test my glucose, but I don't have any that ECG machine. If it is affordable, yeah, that you should please make it available to everywhere so that you can market it and people will be benefited.
Yeah. So
that's my.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is the idea. That's why I already said that helping, like Mahatma Gandhi had said, the fruits must reach every human being. This reaches every human being, not 400 to 500 rupees.
Yeah.
Number one. Also, it's not just the cost; it is the ease. You don't have to put 12 sheets. You don't take a paper readout after the half an hour. All right. This is as good as using a thermometer.
Yeah.
By the way, CE certified. It has sort of all the proofs that this works like a sort of a 12 lead. But most important part is technology for transformation. You imagine a poor woman. It's not just again the cost. Just look at it. If you are a poor woman in a village, okay, and your sort of doctor or medical center is say 5-6 kilometers away, you have all right, you have to be put in a bullock cart or a scooter or a jeep, whatever you have, and take her there. You don't have to. If connectivity is there, you can from where you are. So it is not just the affordability; it is the user friendliness, basically, you know, of the other devices also. Because as soon as you say it is non-invasive, it's a big matter. So therefore, as far as India is concerned, I would use the following keywords for diagnostics. The first and foremost is affordability. I insist on that. It has to be sort of cheap. The second is user-friendly and particularly non-invasive. Because the moment you are invasive, there is another person that is required. All right? Like this. And it can make a difference. And this is picking up hugely, by the way. You can go to, I'm not an advertiser for this, but this one, you know, I got from Amazon by just asking for Sanket, S-A-N-K-E-T, Sanket. Okay? And you can get it for 2,500 rupees. And this is now being used by, for example, hospitals for monitoring the heart patients after surgery and so on and so forth, etc. So I totally agree with you. That's why I'm saying the future lies there. And may I tell you, while ending, Ashok, sorry, I took a little bit more time than I should, but let me tell you something. When I spoke in Columbia, in White-Row, the World Association of Industrial Technology Research Organizations, I talked about this $1 sort of test for breast cancer, you know, the iBreast, which, as I said, has US certificate also, everything. And I remember David Twitt, who is the DTI, Danish Technological Institute director, came to me and he said that in Denmark, they have lots of women, you know, who are afraid of the sort of mammography, there's the old women and so on. And this would be fantastic. Now, can you imagine an innovation done in India? The Danish people want it. Why? Because Not affordable excellence. The affordable part India will look at, but excellence part. The moment it meets the quality, you conquer the world, by the way. All right. So therefore, there will be no limits. No, that's why I say, forget about everything. Just go for quality. Just go for excellence. And if you make it affordable, you will make an inclusive society. If you make it unaffordable, you will create inequalities. That is the basic message I want to give.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for a very mesmerizing talk. And in these days of bad news all over, it was a kind of a mood elevator for all of us that cheered us up with great science and innovations. That said, I will also like to thank you for reminding us about the problem created by the access to people, digital access at the school level. And today, with the fact that the 53% of the schools are without electricity, and of the remaining 50%, only 10% have internet connectivity and 5% are reliable, we are essentially entering an area of a digital divide where the students with internet haves and have-nots will be created. So any actions that your Innovation Council can take would be a great thing for service. Otherwise, we are in a very difficult time. And I'm thankful that you are conscious of it and you mentioned this about digital divide. You also reminded us that how academies have to reinvent themselves to be inclusive innovators, and we chart our thinking process to be more effective for the society. And one of the things I liked is that innovation can be caused only by empathy. Empathy has to be there. I think that's an important message that you gave. I would like to hear you end on endlessly because you speak so nicely and so compellingly, but I have to stop now. But I'm very grateful on behalf of INSA. I'll not thank you on behalf of INSA because you are a part of INSA, but on behalf of all of us, I feel very thankful and grateful to you for enlightening us and actually cheering us up for some very good news from the. Thank you so much, sir. And let's give him a big hand by actually clapping in front of our screens. And only request to you I have for you, sir, is that you must give this talk. You must give this talk. You should actually talk to INSA once in a month so that we keep on track.
I'll be happy to do that. All that I would say is, I was introduced in many different ways by many people. I remember when I used to talk about patterns, they said not Mashelkar, pattern-kar. When I used to, in 1 year, I gave 38 lectures on polymers. And I remember Dr. Mohan Ram calling me polymer-kar. But I'll tell you the latest that.
Yes, I forgot to mention that you are, I think, appropriately nicknamed as the dangerous optimist.
Yes, I am. But even interestingly, somebody called me self-appointed Chief Inspiration Officer. Self-appointed Chief Inspiration Officer. My idea is to spread joy and happiness and positivity that yes, we can. That is my job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you very soon again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. It's a privilege.
I can now hand over the meeting to Professor Chandrima Saha to take the AGM forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll join. I'm not leaving. I'm joining the AGM.
Yes,
but thank you.
I have to shut down. Okay.